conduct for an ongoing court case that involved his girlfriend. After the court proceeding yesterday in Town District Court, he was arrested, brought to the court. He was on probation for operating under the influence, second offense. The probation department requested that he be detained, and he was released by the court. Police responded, I believe, several times last night or today to that King Philip apartment address based on reports of behavior of Stephen McLean. His girlfriend informed the police that he went to work this morning and was fired because he was intoxicated. We're still verifying that. Police, again this afternoon, arrived at his apartment. They were outside of the apartment door. He opened the door and pointed a gun at the officers. A taser was deployed, and two of the officers fired their weapons, resulting in the defendant being hit and going to the ground. They provided medical treatment. He was taken to a hospital and pronounced dead at the hospital shortly after arriving. Like all these cases, this is a tragedy. We see this around the country. We saw a terrible incident yesterday in North Carolina. Officers, fugitive task force reportedly responding, and I believe 4 officers were killed and others wounded. So fortunately, no officers were injured. And again, this is just another example of police officers putting their lives in jeopardy when they report to these various scenes involving individuals, state of mind, whatever it is, and unfortunately facing deadly force, it seems, more often than not in some of these instances. So again, the officers who responded had body cameras on. It was recorded. We viewed it, and again briefly depicts Mr. McLean opening the door and pointing a firearm at the officers. I would now like to introduce Chief LaPlante to make a statement.
Good evening. My name is David LaPlante. I'm the Chief of Police for the Raynham Police Department. First and foremost, I want to say that I'm thankful that none of our officers were injured during this incident. This is not a day that any officer hopes will come. But the men and women of the Raynham Police Department put on their uniforms and report for duty, not knowing what will happen on any given duty shift. This was a very dangerous incident where our officers had a firearm pointed at them by an armed individual. Our officers responded consistent with their training and rendered emergency medical aid to the suspect until paramedics arrived. I want to reiterate that there's no active threat or danger to the public at this time, and residents in the area may see an increased police presence while the investigation is ongoing. DA Quinn's office will be handling the investigation into this matter. Any further inquiries should be directed to his office. Thank you.
DA, was there an exchange of gunfire at the scene, or did the police just fire at the...
Well, the defendant, Mr. McLean was in possession of a firearm. That's being investigated now. A firearm with a 21-round magazine was seized from him that he was in possession of at the time of the altercation. So the ballistics department will, in the process of analyze the firearm to determine if shots were, if a bullet or projectiles were fired.
Can you explain again why officers went there today? Was it a call from his girlfriend, or can you describe that to me? Well,
just in general, there were, my understanding is there were several dispatches of officers to his residence after the court appearance. As I said, he was arrested yesterday for intimidation of a witness and disorderly person, released by the court. We just watched, we officer saw that on the body cam video, and then I'm not sure who called. It may have been the girlfriend, apparently reporting that he had gone to his place of employment. It appears, what we're told, he was intoxicated. She informs the authorities that he was fired. Came home, the police were called, and the last time they went there, over the last several days, resulted in him pulling a weapon and them discharging their firearms to protect themselves.
And was that a threat that prompted that call, or can you describe what?
Well, I think it was just a general description of his behavior. Now, this has just happened several hours ago, so we're just trying to provide you some information, but I think that he engaged in some belligerent behavior over a period of one day that started with the court matter that his girlfriend was a defendant. He was arrested. Appears to have resisted initially, released from the court, and they went back several other times. So again, we want to have careful reviews of these cases, but this is an individual who, without any justification from what we know at this point, opened the door and pulled a firearm on 4 officers there, lawfully doing their job. And again, as the chief mentioned, you watch these things, you see these things around the country just from a human point of view. You don't know what you're walking into. Do they know what they're walking into in this situation? I mean, okay, he's well-being check, he's acting up. I think last night they may have responded because he was making a disturbance at the apartment, but when they got there, it had settled down, so they moved along. But you don't know how people are going to act. You don't know what their response is going to be. We don't know what their state of being is, so to speak. Whether in any case, whether there are potential mental health issues, whether alcohol or drugs are involved. But, I would take this time to thank the officers throughout in this department and throughout the country that are putting their lives on the line every day, going into these volatile situations. We owe them a debt of gratitude for that. And there is a human aspect to this. Obviously, at times, police conduct is under scrutiny, and it should be in appropriate cases. But what we know at this point, for no justification, a gun was pulled to them. They could have been killed, seriously injured. We've again seen that across the country in these terrible tragedies and violent responses to lawful exercise of police authority.
Had McLean pulled a gun on them previously when they responded to the
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
The focus is, I don't believe that's alleged. They just were, again, they're responding to calls from people concerned about his well-being on the several times that it occurred, and it ended up this afternoon with what I've described. Him opening the door on the body cam, and pointing the gun right at him. Just standing there. I mean, it's difficult to comprehend what one would comprehend if faced with that. But again, it appears, certainly at this point, they clearly are acting professionally and appropriately under extraordinarily difficult circumstances.
Do you know about what time police first responded this morning and then what time the shots were fired?
Before noontime? I guess early this afternoon. I mean, some of that information could be provided later. And again, this was the last time they responded when he ended up pulling the gun on the police, pointing it at them and being fatally shot. So, as I've indicated, it started with the arrest for intimidation of the witness in the Taunton District Court proceeding. That too was on body cam footage. What I just observed was him resisting their attempt to put him in custody at that point. But again, this just happened several hours ago. We're trying to provide some information for you so you know what's going on. But that's what we basically know at this point.
Was he licensed to carry, and if not, what was he doing with a weapon, and did they know that he was possibly armed?
He's not, I'm not aware that he's licensed to carry. I think there would have been some background that would have prevented him from being properly licensed, just leave it at that. I'm not aware of any indication the police knew he was armed, otherwise I don't think they'd be standing outside the door. But that, again, is the risk that you run in these cases. You do not know who you are dealing with now. In response to that, I don't know what, frankly, is going through their mind, whether it's a motor vehicle stop out on the street at night. Again, presuming that it's a lawful stop, and all of a sudden somebody's got a gun, is reaching for a gun in other circumstances. Again, you're well aware. We just, I saw that on the news last night in North Carolina. It's a terrible situation. So whatever, I don't know the fact, but some law enforcement officials in a case that they're reporting are going to execute a fugitive warrant, and 4 of them are killed. I don't know, and others are injured. I can't imagine somebody's got any, I don't know the circumstances of that. I can know the circumstances of this, that there are firearms all over the place out there, illegal firearms. What did I say? 21-round magazine. That's what he's pointing at them. Years ago, it would be a revolver. Now, high-capacity weapons are all over the place, endangering the lives of officers and innocent people. Well, again, we believe one officer deployed the taser right before the gun was pointed, or at about the same time. This happened very, very quickly. We just watched the footage. So, appears one officer discharged the taser in an attempt to potentially disarm them, but all of a sudden there is a gun being pointed at them, and they responded to defend their lives.
Was the girlfriend with him when police were called to the unit, or he was alone there?
At the time of the fatal shooting, I believe he was alone. There's no indication anybody else was in the apartment at the time.
Can you repeat his name, please?
His name is Stephen McLean, or McLean. My understanding is that the 2 officers who fired their weapons went to the hospital as part of protocol and have been released. And we certainly will be thinking of them and wish them well.
After what happened to
Well, I'm not a police officer. I'd be on edge. I mean, again, you just don't know what you are walking into. I mean, it seems like there's an increase in police shootings around the country. I can't say for sure, but you've all heard of them. There was one in New York a few weeks ago, upstate New York. So it's just a very sad state of affairs that people are coming, yes, again, that's another state, but that just kind of struck me to hear that yesterday, and the other tragedies that have occurred around the country. So I think I don't want to say ask them, but I would, me personally, thinking about it, I'd be on a heightened state of alert.
Last question?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's Maclean.
And 35.
35 years old. He lives right there at that address.
Stephen with a PH.
PH.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
They're cutting the stop back now.
Okay. Do you want to, oh, you're taking my bag? Or you're taking my